Alright guys, so I'm going to talk about our new roof design we have out here, how to restore it, how to mount the vent prop on it, and how to use the vent prop. So this video is designed for the trainers. Hopefully we can make it pretty quick, but I just want to go over some of the basics of our roof out here. So first thing you might notice is we have a little different design here. We've got some sacrificial pieces around the outer edges, and I've already pulled the screws out of these. I want to show you how the framework looks underneath. And as you can see, our rafter here needs to be replaced. So that's the idea of this, is we're going to pull the screws out of these strips, and that gives us access to this rafter. So the rafter is not screwed or nailed in place. It's sitting in this pocket here. You simply can pull the rafter out after removing all the plywood, and it allows us to slip a new rafter in place. We'll have these pre-cut. One of the important things that we want to do on this is always mark it in the center so that we can mount the vent prop on it easier. One of the other things you'll notice here is that we have it all color coded. So we have green stripes on the sides and orange stripe top and bottom. When you pull this off and you're looking at the framing underneath, we have a lot of pressure treated material. So one of the key things to remember is we do not cut into the pressure treated structural members. This is going to weaken our roof. So if you see any cuts into the pressure treat, you want to make sure we pull the roof out of service until we can get that replaced. The non-pressure treat or standard lumber is what we have in here as sacrificial pieces. Those are going to get some cuts on it over time, and that's fine. But we do need to replace it before we start cutting into the pressure treat. So as people are coming across here, cutting, rolling the rafter, again, the rafter is replaceable. This first line here is standard dimensional lumber. So that's going to get cut and nicked over time. This one here, you can see already has a couple cuts. That's fine, but we want to make sure that once it starts getting cut through, we pull that off, replace it with a new one. So again, we're not cutting into the pressure treat. The idea is that all this is going to be downstairs on the racks, color coded. We got orange stripes on it already. As you've noticed that it needs to be replaced, pull that off, grab some new ones, put it back in place. The hardware we're using on the roof, there's two different kinds. We have these hex head screws. Those are going to be used for securing the cutting strips onto the roof. The other screws that we have will be these or something similar, flathead, about a 2-inch or 2.5-inch long screw with a torque bit head. Those are going to be used to secure our 3/4-inch plywood to the outsides here. Okay. So again, all these screws are replaceable. Please don't use regular drywall type screws or deck screws. The heads get lost in the OSB and in the sawdust, and they're hard to find. So we have our new rafter in place here. We're going to secure these 3/4-inch OSB around the outside edges, and then we'll talk about how to mount the vent prop onto the roof. Again, green on the outside edges, orange on the center. Okay, so we've gotten all this plywood secured. I put 4 to 6 of those flathead screws, this gold style flathead, to secure those to our roof. The next ones we're going to use are these hex head screws to secure our cutting strips and also to mount our vent prop on here. The first thing we want to do is find the center if it's not already marked. So right here we have a space of 46 inches. We're going to mark the center of that at 23. The only other thing we need is, of course, our bracket, and then a chunk of 3/4-inch material that we're going to use as a spacer here. So where we mark our center is going to go right underneath the middle of this tab on our bracket. Okay, so we're going to put that in place. We're going to raise that up, put our 3/4 inch spacer underneath here. That 3/4 inch space is really important. We need at least that much in order for the vent prop to roll properly across this rafter. So make sure you have that. You can give it a little bit more than 3/4, but it needs at least 3/4. Again, make sure this tab is 3/4 inch as well. Now, you don't have to put a screw in every single hole on our bracket, but you do need to at least put 2 near each of these ears on the bracket. Okay, so we've got that one side mounted in place. Now we're going to set our vent prop in place. To do that, we're going to lift it up along the side here, set it over those ears, and hook it in place there. After you've done that, you can grab the other half of the mounting bracket, and you'll see where those ears will match up and where you can secure your screws in for that. Now, before you secure these in place, make sure that they match up side to side and also up and down. We don't want a big gap there that's going to interfere with how this rolls across the rafter. So you see how this is mounted in here. One thing I want to point out is make sure you use these screws on this bracket. Please don't use anything else. I've seen framing nails in here bent halfway over. It just doesn't secure the bracket to the rafter the way we need it to. It doesn't hold the prop in place securely. So make sure you secure those in place with the screws as you see here. At least 2 by each ear there. You can see that gap, 3/4 inch gap underneath the ear of the bracket. It's important for that bar in order to pivot back and forth across the rafter. So now that we've got this mounted, you can see it pivots freely on either side of that rafter. Make sure you test that before we go any further here. We're going to use these 8-inch strips, 7/16 OSB. You're going to need 4 strips for each evolution. Now don't forget, we're going to use these twice. So, to restore the prop, one at a time, we're going to place these strips in this groove here at the bottom of the prop here is where we're going to start. Okay, and place it in. Line up the edge of the strip with the edge of the metal framework. We're going to put that in place. We're going to use these hex head screws. We're going to use at least 3 on each strip. Now, if you might be using an axe to chop this ventilation hole, you're going to want to use 4. Use at least 3 with each one. After the first one's secured, we're going to slide the second one in place. Before you do that, just double check, make sure that you have about the equal space over here to cut and on this side. Just make sure your prop is kind of centered in the hole here. Then you're just going to follow it around clockwise, securing these cutting strips. One thing I'll point out is you can see here the plastic pieces, what we call our saw guides on the edge here. You can see this one's getting pretty chewed up. So pretty soon this one's going to need to be replaced. These are replaceable, but we can also reverse them, turn them around to get a new one. So the most important thing is if you see that this is getting chewed up and needs to be replaced, let somebody know so we can get some new ones ordered and in place here. So after this has been cut, you're going to have a gap here. Typically the piece that's been cut will have already fallen inside and your prop's been rolled. What I want to show you is it's important to remember that these strips, you can get 2 uses out of most of them. You'll see some that are cut, you still have about 6 inches of material to work with there. So the important thing is to pull these screws, and if you still have enough material, just turn it over, slide it in place, and secure it with the same screws. Again, work your way around the prop. If one is cut and you only have about 4 inches of material or less and it doesn't look like it's going to be enough, then go ahead and toss that one and grab a fresh one. But don't forget, we can get multiple uses out of these.